next journal paper award goes to the paper Understanding the Contribution of Recommendation Algorithms on Misinformation Recommendation and Misinformation Dissemination on Social Networks. And Maria Soledad Pera is going to present it.
There we go. We won't do the full name. Hello. I'm here to present a collaboration with a colleague from Boise State, Francesca, and her PhD student, Royal Pathak. Yes, I was at the karaoke last night, so there you go. This is what happened. So I'll keep it brief because I'm sure that then you can chat with me tomorrow when I maybe have a voice, because remember that there is more. We have workshops and tutorials. So let's get going. Misinformation. Why should we care about misinformation? We, not as the RecSys community, that's on the next slide, but as humans. Well, it turns out that, according to Pew Research at least, we are becoming informed via social media. Twitter, which I would probably not judge a lot, but I would judge if you get informed by Twitter, but many other social, TikTok, I'm running, I cannot see because they're very tiny and I don't remember the names, but there we go. We're on social media, we get informed, and we know that the issues with misinformation, we saw the impact of that during the COVID era, we saw the impact of that on elections. I was in the US, so particularly I will claim the US, but I think it's all over. And so at the end of the day, we could say we shouldn't care as a community because maybe natural language processing, social media mining, information retrieval, they can detect it and be done with it, so then it doesn't become our RecSys problem. Well, we wish it was that easy. Believe me, if not. If not, we would have already done it. So we cannot trust on just that because it's an ongoing problem to clean the catalogs and say, well, if it's not in the catalog, the recommender won't see it and then won't recommend it. So then we need to put the recommender in the spotlight and we need to try to figure it out what's going on when misinformation becomes part of the recommender ecosystem. We had three things that we wanted to accomplish this time around. We wanted to understand what happened with the recommender algorithms in the face of misinformation, but then what happened once that misinformation made it to the recommendation list and therefore reached the humans at the end of the recommendation and went around and propagated on social networks. And then, of course, we wanted to reflect of, we hope for no propagation, but that was not a thing, and then reflect of what were the perils of that propagation. How did we do that? We got inspired and we started our experimental setup based on a paper by Alejandro Velocin. Alejandro, are you here? Wave so that people can go and talk to you because it was all your foundational idea. We look at a couple of data sets, different type of misinformation, news, but also more on the health domain. We look at several algorithms, non-personalized ones, personalized ones, content-based, collaborative filtering, but also based on social networks. And that part was the first part of the study where we actually ran an offline evaluation. But then we leveraged Francesca's expertise on social networks and simulation, and we simulated what would happen if those recommendations reach these users. We simulate that propagation, and then we try to evaluate from different perspectives. We wanted to see not only the amount of misinformation that got exposed, how the misinformation on the catalogs or the history of the users compared to what the user got exposed, but also what happened down the lane and what were the trade-off of using some algorithms that may be less prone to misinformation, but made the users less happy. So I could then go through each and every one of the results, but then they would be tiny, very tiny, and I would have 20 more of these, and you would be bored, and we're really close to closing the conference. So I'm going to ask you to believe me until you get to go read the paper, and I will tell you that we may have a problem. And I want you to remember that the patterns look very similar, and I'm going to come back to that in the next slide, and I'm going to tell you why we should care and because why that may be a problem. So why is the problem? Well, collaborative filtering and the social media-based ones were less prone to misinformation, but that came at the expense of user satisfaction. So that's kind of a problem for us. If people are not happy, then what would happen with their interaction with the recommender? So something for us to think about. Then the collaborative filtering versions of all those approaches that we consider that were more of the collaborative filtering family, they made the users more happy, but they were also more joyful in the spread of misinformation. And again, let's think of it this way. The algorithms are not meaningfully trying to do that, but if the items are there and the interaction with those items are there, then they kind of bubble to the surface. Then popularity, of course, propagated everything everywhere, but I guess we cannot be shocked because we click, we like, we spend time, and then it goes through down the cascading of the network. But then the problem, I think, for me, comes from the last part. One of the simulations experiments that we did, we tried to isolate these users that were what we call, at the time, non-super spreaders. We had a good name in the super spreaders, and then we didn't have a good name, and so we said, well, non-super spreader. So those that were not as connected in the network. And so what happened if we could see it for them, maybe being exposed was not so much of a problem because they wouldn't propagate it. It's not that we hope that that would be the case, but we kind of hope that that would be it, because then we could say, wait, if that is it, then we blame it on the super spreader and we try to find solutions for them. It turns out that no, and I think that's what makes it more problematic. There is not one type of user that is more propense to propagate it because it's more connected or less connected or likes something more than the other. So what does it mean? A lot for us, not just for us, but a lot for all of us from different perspectives to explore. We can look at the detection of the items that are in the catalog, but misinformation changes all the time, so we need to be a little bit faster in how do we detect that. We can also look at the algorithms, try to dig deeper in more strategies and see if there's some that could be smarter at detecting that at the gate. But we can also then look at the users. Can we try to give them the information? I don't know if it's via explanations, if via, those are options that are not the type of things that I study, but there are a lot of people in the audience that do that. Can we help the users understand to look better in the information that they're exposed to and make better decisions about what they consume and what they propagate in their network? And so with that, you know I like to chat. We can chat later, we can chat tomorrow. And if you're going to see IKM, Royal is going to present this paper on the T-Web session, so we can also continue the conversation there. And I was well behaved. I promised that I would keep it in time, and I did.
Thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you. Now I have the picture of Fisher.
We actually have 1 minute for questions, if
There you
anyone
go.
has
Then
questions.
I can answer. Maybe.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions on Slido.
There we go.
I will read one of them. So what is your suggestion on fighting propaganda and misinformation, especially in ongoing conflicts like Russian invasion of Ukraine, where the baseline of what is misinformation and propaganda is missing?
Okay, let me read that so I can answer it properly, and I don't make it up. Okay. So I'm going to give the short version of this, and I think this is a much more complex and a very great area because we have the legal implications, we have the moral implications, but then we also have the implications of what is actually the definition of misinformation. I work a lot on children kind of data, hence the span that you saw on every slide that had nothing to do with misinformation, but it's kind of my signature slide. And when we talked about what is for children, the same here is misinformation. There are many shades. There are things that are really wrong and that we can point them to them, but then there are a lot of great areas that are interpretation. So I think we just need to be careful. I think we need to understand that we're not going to find one perfect solution, but we do need to be mindful and think about that ahead rather than then just do something and then say, oops, we made a mistake. Because the recommenders that we're playing here to try to understand is one thing. Sometimes when we do the research, we try to see what's going on. It's different from the ones that are in the real world and the people from industry who have more experience. They have a lot of more reach and they have a lot of more real consequences. So as researchers, we should pay a little bit more attention and be more careful. But I think that I would leave it at that and then we can chat more over coffee.
Thank you. There are other good questions on Slido, so please check it. Thank you, Sole.